Okay, so we're just going to quickly go over the next few chapters of 2 Samuel, and I thought this would help. It's a lot of words, so don't really worry about what's on the screen right now. When we get closer, it will be more helpful for you. So, we kind of already talked about this. They established a new capital city, Jerusalem. Super duper, just perfect location. It was the ideal capital city, built on a rocky hill, so that way it was easy to protect against enemies. Not only that, but he formed some political alliances. He befriended people. This helped them with trade, but also with protection. And then he defeats the Philistines, right? So in 2 Samuel 6, they try to move the Ark of the Covenant, right? And they use this new cart. And Uzzah, I think that's how you'd say it, Uzzah dies. How does he die? I'm going to read you it real quick. I'm going to read 2 Samuel 6, 5 through 7. It says, And David and all the house of Israel were making merry before the Lord with songs and lyres and harps and tambourines and castanets and cymbals. And when they came to the threshing floor of Nacon, Uzzah put out his hand to the ark of God and took hold of it. So he touched the Ark of the Covenant, Ark of God. For the ox stumbled, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah. And God struck him down there because of his error, and he died there beside the Ark of God. So as a priest, Uzzah had ignored God's command with regard to moving the ark. And instead of, I know he's probably trying to protect, but he touches the Ark of Covenant, which God commands him never, ever, 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 ever to do. But he does, and so God strikes him down and he's dead. Not super happy, sunshiny, but oh well. So then we turn to 2 Samuel, and this is the super important God's covenant. 2 Samuel 7. David wants to build this great temple to house the ark. Okay, so he talks to Nathan the prophet. Nathan the prophet, help me out here. David is thinking in his head, and he says to Nathan, See now, I dwell in a house of cedar, but the ark of God dwells in a tent. And so then God tells Nathan that David would not build him a house. David, good idea, but this is not your job. But what does God tell David? In verse 7:11, he says this. From that time that I appointed judges over my people Israel, and I will give you rest from all your enemies. Moreover, the Lord declares to you that the Lord will make you a house. So he says, you're not going to build me a house, but I am going to build you a house. And what does he mean by house? He does not mean an actual, like, stone or wood or whatever house. But instead he means like a dynasty, a family, but one that's going to last throughout the ages. He is going to build David a dynasty through his offspring and through his name. So it's the idea of that house of God is not just a building, but instead it's a people, it's a community, it's a family, right? But he says later in verses 12 through 13, which I will read you right now, When your days are fulfilled and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your offspring after you, who shall come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of the kingdom forever. So who's going to build the temple? Not David, but instead his offspring, aka Solomon, who's his son. One of his sons. I guess he's got a million. So then in 7:14 through 17, God talks about this. Let me read it to you. God says, I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. When he commits iniquity, which is sin, I will discipline him with the rod of men, with the stripes of the sons of men. But my steadfast love will not depart from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I put away from before you. And your house and your kingdom shall be made sure forever before me. Your throne shall be established forever. In accordance with all these words, in accordance with all this vision, Nathan spoke to David. So Nathan's like the go-between between God and David. So what's he saying? He's saying David's kingdom's going to reign forever. Is he talking about the earthly kingdom? No, he's talking about that dynasty, that house, that family. This is a reference to Judah's reign, the dominion forever in Jesus. AKA, remember, David is like Jesus's great 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 grandfather, right? Jesus comes from the line of David. And through Jesus, I mean, the whole world is saved. So he's talking about this dynasty, this family that David has, um, is not just going to be this earthly kingdom, but it's this heavenly kingdom that is complete through Jesus Christ, that perfect king that we talked about in Joshua and Judges. And so God is continuing to build David's kingdom. In if we like scoot forward through chapters 8 through 11 and some other ones, we hear so much about David's victories, what he conquered for Israel in the name of God. We're not going to specifically read those just because for time's sake, but after this covenant, we're going to see David and what he does as king. And some are some really good things, and some are some not so great things. But again, God still keeps this covenant, aka promise, to David that he will build this house, this dynasty, which will lead them eventually to this heavenly kingdom with Jesus Christ. Just a couple other notes. This is kind of interesting. So the Bible gives a lot of attention to David. 62 chapters of the Bible are about David. When you like compare them to, the only 14 chapters that Abraham gets, 11 chapters that Jacob gets, and 10 chapters that Elijah gets. Like David gets a ton of chapters. And so it's really cool to see how God uses him again. Like I said, because he's a sinful person, but God still uses him. David is not the king that you would picture. Okay, he's this runt of the litter. He's tending sheep when Samuel comes to look at Jesse's son. Like he's the last choice on the market. But God still chooses him. David becomes king at age 30. Remember, he started as a little boy in Saul's, helping Saul by playing and calming him down, playing music, excuse me, but has to run away for 15 years and doesn't become king until 15 years after this, anointing when he's 30. David reigns for 40 years, so he's there for a while. 70 years in Hebron, that is what we had been talking about now. And then remember, they just moved to Jerusalem. This starts his 33-year reign in Jerusalem.